The countryside lay quiet beneath the soft glow of a late afternoon sun. In the small house by the guava orchard, life moved gently, like the rhythm of a familiar song. Dee was outside, bent over rows of young beans, his hands darkened with soil but steady with care. Huyen, sitting on the bamboo mat near the chicken coop, sliced bananas and vegetables, smiling as the hens gathered around her feet. Nearby, little Maya laughed as she tried to carry a small watering can, spilling more water onto her dress than onto the flowers she aimed for. It was a scene of peace they had built with patience and quiet sacrifice. After years of hardship, after storms that had once nearly torn them apart, they now cherished the ordinary days filled with simple meals, shared laughter, and the promise of tomorrow. To outsiders, theirs was a humble life, but to Dee, Huyen, and Maya, it was everything. "Mom, look, the flowers are drinking water," Maya exclaimed, her eyes shining with excitement. Huyen reached out, wiping the drops of water from her daughter's cheek. "Yes, dear, and soon they will bloom beautifully, just like you." Dee glanced over at them, his heart swelling with a warmth he never put into words. For him, watching mother and daughter together was enough. Evenings were the sweetest. As the sky darkened and the cicadas began their song, the family would sit together under the lamplight. Dee repaired baskets, Huyen sewed old clothes into something new, and Maya chattered about her small world at school. Their life might not have been rich in gold or silver, but it was rich in love, and that was what kept them whole. Yet, as the wind shifted and the clouds gathered heavy with rain, fate was already preparing to test that fragile peace. Somewhere beyond the hill, a figure walked slowly, carrying nothing but a worn bag and a silence full of secrets. Neither Dee nor Huyen knew that their lives, once steady and calm, were about to be turned upside down by the arrival of a strange woman. The rain came quickly that evening, sweeping over the fields like a gray curtain. Dee hurried to gather the tools from the garden while Huyen called for Maya to come inside. Thunder rolled over the hills, and the air smelled of wet earth and guava leaves. Just as Huyen was closing the wooden door, a shadow appeared at the edge of their yard. At first, Huyen thought it was a traveler passing by, someone seeking shelter from the storm. But as the figure drew closer, the sight unsettled her. It was a woman frail, drenched from head to toe, her hair clinging to her face. She clutched a small, old bag to her chest as if it were her only treasure. "Please," the woman's voice cracked, trembling like the rain that beat down around her. "Could I rest here for a while?" Dee stepped forward cautiously, his protective instinct sharp. He studied her face, lined with weariness and something deeper, something broken. "Who are you?" he asked, his tone firm but not unkind. The woman lowered her eyes. "My name is Nu. I have no place to go." Maya peeked out from behind her mother's skirt, her little hand gripping tightly onto Huyen's sleeve. She whispered, "Mommy, I'm scared." Huyen knelt down, stroking her daughter's hair. "It's all right, dear," she said softly, though her own heart was pounding. Huyen looked at Dee, his brow furrowed, his eyes searching hers. They both knew allowing a stranger into their home was a risk. But as thunder roared again, and the woman shivered in the cold rain, Huyen's compassion outweighed her fear. "Come inside," Huyen finally said. "You must be freezing." The woman stepped over the threshold, dripping water onto the earthen floor. Her eyes darted around the small, warm home, the clay stove glowing faintly, the woven mats, the little girl still staring at her with wide, cautious eyes. For a moment, something flickered across her face. Longing, sorrow, and familiarity. Dee closed the door against the storm, but in his heart he knew the storm outside was nothing compared to the one that had just entered their home. The storm passed by dawn, leaving the air fresh and heavy with the scent of wet soil. Birds sang again in the guava orchard, but inside the little house, an unease had settled. Nu sat quietly near the stove, her hands wrapped around the cup of hot tea Huyen had given her. She rarely drank from it, only staring into the steam as though it carried ghosts from another time. Maya kept her distance, clinging to Dee's arm, her eyes filled with suspicion. At first, Huyen tried to convince herself that Nu was only a weary traveler, nothing more. But soon, odd details began to trouble her heart. When Huyen brought rice to the table, Nu whispered, "Just like your mother used to cook it, soft and warm." Huyen froze. She had never spoken of her mother to this woman. She forced a smile and asked, "Have we met before?" But Nu only lowered her eyes and shook her head. Later that day, while Dee worked outside, Nu wandered through the small yard. She touched the bamboo fence as though testing its strength, then murmured, "Your father once built fences just like this, to keep you safe." The words struck Huyen like a stone. She had never told anyone in this village about her father, not even Dee in detail. That night, Dee noticed the worry in her face. "Huyen, what is it?" "You've been quiet all day," Huyen hesitated, her voice trembling. "Dee, she knows things she should not know. About my family. About my past." "How can that be?" Dee frowned, his hand resting on hers. "Maybe she's confused. She seems troubled in her mind." But as he spoke, even Dee could not ignore the chill that ran through him when he recalled the way Nu sometimes stared at Huyen like someone who carried an old, unspoken truth. The next evening, as they shared a simple meal, Nu suddenly called Huyen by a name no one in the village knew. A name from long ago, a name tied to wounds she had buried deep. The spoon slipped from Huyen's hand, clattering against the clay bowl. The peaceful life she and Dee had built was beginning to crack, and the past she thought she had escaped was slowly finding its way back, through the voice of this strange woman. The night was quiet, too quiet. Crickets sang outside, and the moon cast a silver glow across the bamboo roof. But inside the house, tension pressed down heavier than the humid air. Nu sat near the doorway, her eyes fixed on Huyen as if she could no longer hold back the storm brewing within her. Finally, her voice broke the silence. "Huyen, do you not recognize me?" Huyen stiffened, her breath caught in her throat. "I told you before," she whispered. "I don't know you." Nu's lips trembled, her eyes glistening. "You do know me. Or at least, you once did. I am your sister." The words crashed into the room like thunder. Dee's face turned pale, his gaze shifting between the two women. Maya, sensing the heaviness, clutched Huyen's sleeve with frightened eyes. Huyen's heart pounded violently. Memories she had locked away for years clawed their way to the surface. Her childhood, her family torn apart after a tragedy she never spoke of, the sister who vanished without a word. Could this broken woman before her truly be Nu? The sister she had mourned as lost forever? "No," Huyen whispered, her voice shaking. "My sister, she is gone. She cannot be you." But Nu stepped closer, pulling something from her old, weathered bag. It was a piece of fabric, worn and faded with time, the same patterned scarf Huyen's mother had once given her children before their family was scattered. "Do you remember this?" Nu asked, her voice breaking. "You had the red one. I had the blue. I kept it all these years, waiting for the day I might find you again." Tears blurred Huyen's vision. She reached out a trembling hand but stopped midway. Fear and longing colliding inside her chest. Dee placed a steadying hand on her shoulder, grounding her, though his own heart was unsettled. "Why now?" Huyen asked, her voice raw. "Why come after so many years? Why not sooner?" Nu's face hardened with sorrow. "Because I was ashamed. Because I lived in shadows, far from the life you built. And because the truth I carry may break you." Her words trailed off, heavy with unspoken secrets. In that moment, the peaceful life Huyen and Dee had fought to protect felt fragile, as if one more revelation could shatter it completely. The air inside the small house was thick with silence. The scarf lay on the mat between Huyen and Nu, a fragile bridge between past and present. Dee could hear Maya's soft breathing as the child leaned against her mother, her eyes wide with confusion. Nu's voice trembled as she finally spoke the words she had been carrying for years. "Huyen, the night our family was torn apart, I didn't just disappear. I was taken. I lived as a shadow, forced into a life I could not escape. I carried guilt every day for not finding you, for not protecting you. And when I finally broke free, I was too afraid. Afraid you would hate me. Afraid you had forgotten me." Huyen's heart clenched. Pain, sorrow, and disbelief swirled inside her. "All these years, I thought you abandoned us." Nu's tears fell freely. "No, sister, I never abandoned you. I searched, I prayed, until fate led me here. I just wanted to see you once more, to know you are alive, to know you found peace. I ask for nothing, only that you forgive me." Dee's eyes softened as he looked at Huyen. He understood the storm inside her, the fear of reopening old wounds, the uncertainty of letting this woman into their fragile life. Yet he also knew the weight of regret and the healing power of forgiveness. Huyen's hands shook as she lifted the scarf. She pressed it against her chest, tears streaming down her cheeks. For a long time, she said nothing. Then, with a broken sob, she whispered, "You are my sister. No matter what happened, no matter how long, blood cannot be denied." Nu fell to her knees, clutching Huyen's hands, weeping like a child who had finally come home. Maya, though frightened, crept closer, her innocence stronger than doubt. "If you're Mommy's sister," she said softly, "then you're my auntie." Nu smiled through her tears, nodding. Dee placed a hand on her shoulder, firm yet kind. "This home is small, but if you wish to stay, there is space for you. Only speak the truth, always. For this family has lived with too many shadows already." The night outside was quiet again, but inside, hearts that had been broken began to mend. Their peaceful life had been shaken. Yes, but sometimes, even storms bring hidden blessings. And so, in the humble glow of their clay lamp, Huyen, Dee, Maya, and Nu sat together for the first time as family bound by pain, by forgiveness, and by love that had survived the cruelest of years. Life has a way of surprising us with storms we never expect. For Huyen and Dee, the arrival of Nu seemed at first like a threat to their peace, a shadow from the past that could undo everything they had built. Yet in the end, it became clear that the past, no matter how painful, cannot be erased. It must be faced with courage and an open heart. This story teaches us that family is not bound only by time or distance, but by love and forgiveness. Nu carried years of guilt and sorrow, believing she had lost her sister forever. Huyen, too, carried wounds of abandonment and betrayal. Both women suffered in silence, until truth was finally spoken. It was in that moment of honesty and vulnerability that healing began. Forgiveness does not erase the scars of the past, but it allows us to build a future free from bitterness. By choosing compassion over anger, Huyen opened the door for her sister to return not only into her life, but into her heart. Dee's wisdom and Maya's innocence reminded them all that a home is not defined by its walls, but by the kindness and trust shared inside. The lesson is simple, yet profound. Peace is not the absence of storms, but the strength to hold on to love through them. Sometimes, the people who hurt us or disappear from our lives return when we least expect it. The choice then is ours to close the door and guard our pain, or to open it and discover that reconciliation can bring an even deeper peace. In forgiving Nu, Huyen not only regained her sister, but also taught her daughter Maya the greatest truth of all, that love, when it is real, survives even the darkest of years.